this is Jay from Stitch in Time in Bemidji, Minnesota, and we are excited to have here in our store the brand new Infinity 28 from Handi Quilter. We brought out the Infinity when they first came out with it, the Infinity 26, back about 8 years ago. And it was never one of our huge sellers because it was bigger than what a lot of people wanted. And now we've gone even bigger. But there's a few drawbacks to it that never made it quite fit with some of the people's uses. And with coming out with Infinity 28, I see a lot of those being addressed. And I see some really cool things happening with this machine. So I'd like to take the time here to show you what I think some of the amazing features are of this new machine. And we're going to go through that. We're going to switch the camera around here, and I'm going to bring it up close so you can see what some of these things are. There's been a lot of changes that have come to this machine over the Infinity 26, and even has some features that the Amara doesn't have on it as well. So it feels like it is a new cutting-edge, top-of-the-line machine. So let's start talking about some things that we're catching up on. One of them is the lighting. So if you remember, when the Infinity first came out, it had a lot more lighting than the Fusion that we had before. But then the Amara came out and it just made the Infinity look old and dull. Well, now, you have the same bright light on this machine as we had on the Amara. It is really, really bright. You have it focused up front here, and you have it the whole light across the back, which is really nice. I'm going to dim it off here so that it doesn't fade out the camera as much. But it has really, really good lighting. And so that's a really nice feature. One of the things you can't see as much there, but I'll show it to you here. It has one cable that runs from the machine to the tablet. It's a USB-C cable, which means it can do both the power and all the data communication. So it's a much, much better system than we had with our USB cables before, because those cables oftentimes went south on us in a hurry. So I'm glad to see that happening. It's a lot cleaner look up here. There's also only one cable, I don't know if you can see it from there, for the handlebars. We don't have two USB cables, just one, and it makes it a cleaner look here. There's not as many cables down around below here. One of the other new features on this machine is that you have individually articulating handlebars like we have on the Amara. But one of the advantages over the Amara and the older machines is that now they're mounted directly behind the handlebar, not underneath here. Because we have the bigger poles, we work with bigger frames. These ones, if they are down here, it would oftentimes hit the quilt when it's rolled up on the take-up pole. And this way, by moving them to the back, that eliminates that issue. The other thing that's really kind of cool, and I'll show you a zoom in of this one, but if you look at this, watch this. I am a little taller than most ladies, but I can set this thing to be whatever height I want it to be at. So if I want it to be up here, where I can quilt at my chinny level, so I can really get close to where I'm wanting to, I can do that. Or let's say you're a vertically challenged person that wants it a little bit lower. Or maybe what you're also doing is when you're doing a lot of your micro stippling and things like that, you want to be able to get a rolling stool so you can sit down and go along with it. Well, that's where this really makes it nice, because you can set it wherever you wanted. And you couldn't hear it, the machine going up and down, because you can't hardly hear this whole table going up and down. Some of you have had the high-rise system that we had in the past, and that sounded like about 5 robots all trying to work together, and none of them worked at exactly the same. And the whole frame would kind of go like this as it went up and down. None of that here. It is uniform, and I actually played with it. After I leveled the frame, I would put it way up and check the machine. It was level there. I put it down. It was level there. Huge improvement, and I'm really thankful for Handi Quilter doing that. So that is going to be a really, really nice addition for people who struggle standing at their machine for a long period of time, and they want to be able to have a way of continuing to do their quilts, but also be able to sit down and relax a little bit on the way. So let's show you up close what some of these new features are of this machine. And I'm going to go over the screen first, some of the different functions there, and so that you can actually see more what's happening as we go from there. Okay, so be right back. Okay, so the screen looks fairly similar to what we've had before. A lot of the icons are similar. So I'm just going to kind of go through the basic ones that you're used to. It's manual mode versus regulated mode. That is very similar to what we had before. We have the knotting stitch. We have the thread cutter, which you do not have on the Amara, and they have reworked that some. They also have the tension knob. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit, because the tension knob, you still have your preset tensions, but you also have a manual option for this, and that's really cool. And so that's, I'm going to show that here in a little bit, but that is a feature where you can reach down on the left side and there's going to be a tension knob that you can adjust manually if you want to make that fine adjustment. This is your bobbin estimator, similar to what we've had before. This is a new button, and this is an amazing button because when you touch it, it releases the tension on your thread. So it makes it easier for threading. It makes it easier for getting your thread in between the discs. It also makes it, if you're trying to clean out in between your discs or stuff like that, you can very quickly do that. Now, right now, you have to remember to turn that back on. Otherwise, you have no tension, and you start stitching, it's going to make a mess. But I already reached out to Handi Quilter, and this is what I love about them. When we watched the presentation on this a week ago, I reached out to them and said, hey, that seems like a safety issue to me because that could cause the thread to jam up underneath. And they liked it, and they said, you know what, that's a good idea. They're actually working on it right now, that if you hit the play pause button or you hit the run in the Pro Stitcher or the thread locking stitch with that open, it'll either automatically close it or it will give you the warning to say, hey, don't do this. So it's something to keep in mind with that, but it's a really nice feature on that. And then your needle up and down the same as before. Now here's the new one. And this is what, instead of having the little wheel that we had here for the Amara and the Infinity to make it go up and down, since the hand wheel's way back in the next county, it's so far back there, instead, they have where you can go left and right, and that'll just kind of turn that hand wheel. So like if you're turning the hand wheel towards you, you would just go like this and it would do this. But they also have 3 positions. The middle position, if you press it, is going to be the normal stopping position. It's the best position for threading. Your needle stop in the down position is going to automatically just drop it into the lowest position, which is great, if you for some reason don't want to reach down to the handlebar and do a needle down position. But this is the one that I really like. It's the super high position. Because when you're trying to thread the needle when the glide foot is on, guess what? It's really difficult because the needle is down below, you have your dish of your glide foot, and then the eye of the needle is down below the top of the dish, so you're trying to fit in through there. Well, now it will actually raise that eye above the dish of the glide foot, allowing you to easily get at it. And so it's a really, really nice feature for that. You also have the camera, and when you turn that on, it's going to be a little harder to see because, hey, look at that. It actually has that's how clear this is. I don't have a quilt loaded here right now, but let me just put something down here so that you can see how clear this is. It's gonna have to refocus just a little bit. Let's go here. And there, look at that. It is so crisp and clear, so you can see your threads way better, so you can see your stitches. Now, the thing that's nice about this is that when you're working with this, notice there's a light bulb thing here. If you turn your lights on, they oftentimes want to show right through the needle holes that you have in your quilt, where you just stitched it. And so you can turn them on and off right from here. This is a 12 megapixel camera. It's 4 times more powerful than the old one we had in here. And it's also much more adept at working in low light situations. So that's a nice feature. You have your same controls for the light as what we did for the Amara. And so that's a nice feature. You have your timers. Look at that. I already put 339 stitches on this when I was playing with it a little bit yesterday. You have your same calculator. Here's where you would do updates for it. Here's where you get diagnostic from Handi Quilter if they need to do any testing. Your settings, you can have your presets of your tensions right here so you can adjust them accordingly. Bobbin estimator. Now here's one of the things that is also really cool is the Infinity 28 only comes with Pro Stitcher. You can't buy it without Pro Stitcher. Because 99% of people, 99.9% of people that buy the Infinity buy with Pro Stitcher. So they said, let's just do it this way. So it doesn't even come with rear handlebars. But by doing so, they've also programmed the ability in here where you can put your channel locks in here. If you're constantly wanting to do one channel lock or another, and rather than reaching up to your screen to do it, you can program these in here. You can also put your tension up or down as we did before, and you also can program one of these to be a tension quick release. So when you get to the end of your seam and you're going to pull your thread, you can hit that and it opens it up and allows you to quickly tie off your threads that way. So it's kind of a really nice feature that they've done there as well. Laser pointer like we've had before, the alarms for bobbin estimator, thread breakage, that needs to get turned on. I'm going to show you a new feature with that here in a little bit, or not a new feature, but an improved feature that they've done with that. And we'll talk about that and your lifetime stitch count. So that's the basics of the screen. There's a lot of really good improvements to this. Let's look at some of the hardware functions on this machine. Okay, so let's talk about this new apparatus down here. So one of the nice things with the new Infinity 28 is that it comes with a glide foot, which is the way I only ever sell a Pro Stitcher. I almost require you to buy a glide foot, because if you don't buy one now, you'll tear a hole in your quilt and then you'll come back and buy one later, and you'll be sad about that. So I'm trying to save you your grief by making you buy one at the beginning. But the Infinity comes with that, and that is really nice. But here's the new feature. If I take this, look at that. The foot just drops right off. And I'm going to point this out here. I don't know if you can see it on there. Notice that there is a metal circle in the bottom of here. Okay, I can hear you all cheering now. You know why? Because when we've had the old ones that were just plastic down there, when you'd pull it away too quickly to trim your threads at the end, if you didn't release the tension on your thread down here, you would end up melting a little slit in that because that was all plastic. I'm so happy to see that they're going this way. I can't wait for them to do the rest of them. But it also has a different hookup here because this is the quick release system. And so the way this works is you put it underneath here and you release the lever the whole way and until it's whole way up, and then you just lock it in place there, and that's it. That's how easy it is to change your feet. No wrenches, nothing else there. And if you noticed, it's spring-loaded. So it's not going to vibrate loose. You're not going to have to worry about that. It'll just automatically go on. So now what that's going to mean is that this is going to be a whole new line of feet. But that's actually a good thing, because this same mounting kit is going to be available very shortly for all of the Amara and the Forte machines. That's awesome, because for those of us who are constantly switching feet, you know, the couching foot, the Echo feet, or whatever else like that, we're now going to have quick attach feet. The only downside is that you have to use either the quick attach or the older style. You can't swap back and forth between them very easily. So you can change this out on your own. It's fairly easy to do so, but that is something that is really, really nice. The other thing that's nice is, notice there's a new thread guide here, and I think you can see this. I'm going to just double check that. Yep, there's a new thread guide right here. I'm going to just try and put my hand there so you can see that a little bit. That is to keep control of the thread between here and here. Much, much better than what we had before. And so that is, it keeps it running cleaner down there, because this machine does go at 3,000 or 3,100 stitches per minute. The thread can flop in here, and certain types of threads, it can cause it to want to shred a little bit more so than before. So that is one of the things we're going to I'm really glad about, because I've seen that become an issue in some of the ones in the past. Okay, here's another few features here in the machine that is new to this one. So the power button, which used to be on the side, is now located up front here, and it is lighted this way, and this actually changes colors. So right now it's in kind of a light blue, almost a whitish, and that means that it is on, ready to go, waiting for you. When you power down at the end of the day, it will turn solid blue. It'll be a darker blue, and that will be the color, meaning that it's waiting for you to resume what you're going to do. And there's also red and green for different functions. You know, if there's an issue or an error or something like that, this will change color. But it's also what you would use to turn the machine on and off. I can just show you here and see now it's shut. Now it goes off, and now you can turn it back on again, and it's going to blink, and now we're back to where we were before. Another thing is, those of you who looked at the Amara longingly and you wanted a place to keep your scissors, well, they now have the magnetic holder for it right on the side again. That is nice. Still can't have it on the right side because that's where our thread path is, but that is a nice feature. Now, remember I talked about the tension assembly and how you have a manual adjustment. Well, the tension is normally over here on the right. I'm going to show that to you here in just a little bit because there's a new addition to that one. But they've added this knob here. And this knob you can turn, and it performs just like the black knob on the other side of the head. So you can manually adjust that tension up or down. So if you're used to adjusting your tension by feel rather than by number on the screen, this is awesome because we don't have to try and figure out whether the calibration is off or anything. We can quickly make a manual adjustment. But if we want to just quickly go back to what we had before, we have that ability. And that is a pretty nice feature. Lastly, this feature has come out on some of the latest Amaras. But this little knob right up front here, I had to call up and say, what is this? Well, if you've ever done something like I have, where you're trying to do a lot of precise placement, like creating your areas so that you can do really, really customized work. And if your laser is just a little bit off because your quilt is much thicker on this one than another one, you can make an adjustment with these two holes up here, and you can adjust this laser to be exactly where your needle is, no matter what the thickness of your quilt is. Very, very cool, very nice feature that you're able to do and make that adjustment at home. Okay, this is the new tension assembly, and I want to point out a few things to you that are different than what you've seen before. If any of you have ever had a machine that was not wanting to recognize the thread stitching property, you kept getting a thread breaks message, but your thread wasn't broken. Well, some of that was because the sensor was here, and as your check spring came past it, it was supposed to read coming past it here at all. And it wasn't necessarily doing that effectively all the time. So what they did is they moved it back up here to the top, because your spring always comes back there. And so it's a consistent place that they can have it where it will give a much more accurate settings to read from, so you don't have those errors near as much. The second thing is there's a little plastic ring here now. And what they were finding is that this check spring, because it goes back and forth twice for every stitch, that means it's 6,000 times a minute, 6,200 times a minute, this thing is going back and forth. Well, as that one little metal piece was rubbing against another little metal piece, it was causing that thread break, or that check spring, to eventually sand through. They found that by putting a little plastic washer in between there, that eliminated that wear on it, and that's a nice feature. Second thing, I'm going to show you here, like currently my tension is set at 100, which whatever that, it's just an arbitrary number, so don't get your knickers in a knot, it's just a number. But I'm going to press the tension release knob, and so you can see it right now, it's tight between it. I push the tension release knob, and that quick, it's all loose. And I press the tension release knob, and I'm going to do it again, but I'm not going to say anything. Just listen. You can't even hear it. I'm standing here and I can't even hear it. And it's very, very quiet and very, very quick. So they've really made some huge improvements to that as well. So that's another really nice feature to this. So one of the other new features that's on this machine that I'm really grateful for is the 2-needle system that is coming standard with the Infinity. For many of you, when you got your first Handi Quilter, getting used to a round needle that would rotate any way in there was very difficult because you did not always know how to get it perfectly lined up. And we have little magnets that we use to keep it lined up straight, and there is some advantages to being able to have a round needle. For instance, if you have a hard needle break or something, or your thread really get tangled up in the hook, and maybe it just nudged the hook just a little bit out of time, but not enough that it's breaking the thread immediately. So you want to finish your quilt. This is the advantage where you can actually take a round needle and rotate it just a little bit, and you advance your timing or retard the timing just a little bit to make it work. But for many of you, you don't want to do that. And so with these new machines, they're actually making it so you can choose one or the other. You can either continue to use the round needles like we do have, or you can replace a little pin down in your needle bar, and you can start using the flat back needles that you use in your standard sewing machine. They've been doing this at the Handi Quilter factory for over a year now, and they have not seen any difference in stitch quality between the round back and the flat back. And so for people that are just getting started quilting, this is one huge struggle that I see them not having to face anymore, because they can make sure that that needle is perfectly straight in there every time. And that, I think, could be a real feature that we could appreciate. The other thing that I was going to point out to you, and I don't know how to take video of this because it's something new, but this head is made specifically for people who do a lot of quilting. So I have a customer that bought their machine from us, and in the first year we went out there 3 times because we told them you need to service your machine every 10 million stitches or 2 years, whichever comes first. And we were out there 3 times in the first year. Does that tell you how much stitching she did? And it's fine, the machine works through it, but you have to understand that these are wear machines. You know, if you buy a brand new car and you drive, 50 miles every day, and you do that day after day after day, your miles add up a lot quicker. And so if you have a car that's got 200,000 miles on it, you're understanding that there might be some wear on this, that there might be some major repairs that are needed because you're reaching end-of-life usage. And so I had to explain to my customer, what she's doing is great. She's quilting for a lot of other people, but you got to keep in mind that there is wear that's going to be needed. And she obviously was doing enough of quilts that you don't want to have your machine down for 6 weeks or whatever to send the machine back to the factory to be rebuilt. So what they've done is they have made this entire head here that is able to be disconnected right here. We could send that into the Handi Quilter, and they will immediately send us back a completely rebuilt head. They will take this one then and then rebuild it, and it'll be ready for the next person. But you can do that. And I have done that with the Avante. I've done that with Handi Quilter HQ16, where we had to take the parts out from inside, send them back to the factory, and have them rebuild it. But to be able to do it with 4 screws and disconnect the wires and be able to send it off, that's huge. And I think for those of you who do a lot of stitching, a lot of quilting for the people, it means less downtime. It means the ability to swap out, hey, Jay, I'm getting near this, I got a lot of play in my needle bar. By the way, if you're doing 30 million stitches a year and your needle bar has to go down and back up to make 1 stitch, that means it's traveled its entire length 60 million times and at 3,100 stitches a minute. Again, I keep saying that about speed because it makes a big difference. So keep that in mind, because I think for those of you who do a lot of quilting, keep that perspective here. You will have to do more maintenance, and eventually you may face some bigger expenses of replacing integral parts, but this makes it fast and affordable to be able to swap out heads and do that very quickly and easily. So a lot of people ask the question, what's the price on this machine? Well, obviously I can't explain price on here because it's going to vary from one dealer to the next. Your dealer has their prices set for their machines according to their expenses and what they think they need to make on them. Some dealers are all about selling for the lowest price. Those aren't always the dealers that give you the best service. Just keep that in mind. And so, but I will say this, it's not as expensive as you think it is. What do you think about this machine? Were there a lot of improvements made that I showed you compared to the old Infinity? I think so. And I don't think the price should be more than $1,000 to $2,000 more than the old Infinity was, the Infinity 26. And that to me, for an 8 years of improvement, for maybe at the most a $2,000 difference in price, that's a pretty significant, or that's a pretty reasonable rate change, I would think. So talk to your dealer and get a hard price from them, because they should have this pricing available from their sales manager if they do not have it already in stock. Last question is, what about availability? Well, they originally made 50 of them, and they got 30 of them shipped out before the first of the year. That's why we're so grateful to have ours, because some dealers still don't have their machines yet. But they are making these machines available, and all these machines are built to order, from what I understand. So when they get an order for a machine, they build it, and then they test it and they ship it out individually. And so it can take up to, a week or so after a machine is ordered until it is shipped. So I don't know what the exact availability is. I'm suspecting that you should be able to see them sometime here in February, for sure by March or April. But check with your dealer. They can get more firm prices for you. But as for me, I'm very happy with this machine. I think Infinity has done or Handi Quilter has done some really good improvements, and they've listened to us as they've looked at updating the Infinity 26 to the Infinity 28. And I'm anxious to get this working here. So take care, and if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below or reach out to us, and we will do our best to get you some answers. Take care and God bless.